Nadal lost in the first round of the French Open, and you guys that watch my prediction video, you know that I picked Nadal to win the whole thing. So feel free to go to that video and write a mean comment. I can take the heat. But I'm going to explain to you why I picked him. I was somewhat vague in that video. I did say that this is an emotional pick and that I don't want to jinx Rafa. But I'm a huge Rafa fan. And just like Rafa himself is very superstitious, many of his fans are very superstitious. In fact, when Nadal played against Federer in the 2008 Wimbledon final, I couldn't bear to watch that match on TV. I drove around in my car and followed the score on my phone. So whether Rafa wins or loses tennis matches is something that's very important to me. And the most important tournament out of all of them is Roland Garros. So I couldn't bring myself to jinx him. I had to put him all the way through. But of course, if you watch some of my Monday morning rants, you know that I take analysis very seriously, and it is true that the chances of Nadal winning the first round were very small. So whether Nadal is going to continue to play and whether he's going to play another French Open, that's something that I'm going to discuss later on in this video. But I'm going to tell you how I felt about Rafa playing this year in 2024, and I did not have fun watching Rafa, not because he was losing. Of course, I hate when he loses. I always get down. It takes me a few hours or sometimes a day or two to get over his losses. They kind of stick in my head as if I was the one losing the match. But this year there was something else, because I don't want to see Rafa in pain. When he went to Australia and re-injured himself, and then when he came back for the clay court season in Barcelona and Madrid, I still felt like there were some physical limitations. I watched him play enough where I can detect some differences in his movement, especially to the backhand side or some of the drop shots that he didn't attempt to run down. So in my head, I thought probably better to retire than to play with these physical limitations. So maybe just finish out this year, play the French Open, play Wimbledon, possibly play the Olympics, and call it quits. And while this is something that definitely might happen, I have a whole different mindset about Rafa now that I've had a couple of weeks ago. And I'm going by what Rafa is saying in his press conferences. And he said that these physical limitations are gone. He's feeling better on the court. The issue that he's having, however, is that he's able to play really well in practices. For example, he's been playing some practice matches at Roland Garros with Holger Rune, Medvedev, Korda, and he's been beaten all of them. So Rafa's physical limitations appear to be less of a problem than they were a month ago, and also his game has improved tremendously compared to Barcelona, Madrid, and Rome. And he was absolutely able to show that today in his first round loss to Zverev. I thought that this was Nadal's best match in 2024. Even in the first set, Nadal had chances to break back. In the second set, Nadal served for the set. Even in the tiebreak, there were opportunities to win. He hit a couple of drop shots that set up a little bit too high. Zverev took advantage of them. But then even in the third set, Nadal came out strong, broke right away, was up 2-love, but Zverev was simply too good, possibly one of the greatest two-handed backhands in the history of the game, and also a great forehand and a great serve. Zverev is definitely a contender to win this title. So in my prediction video, I said that Nadal could easily lose 2-2-2 in a similar fashion how he lost to Hurkacz in Rome, but I'm so happy that this didn't happen. Nadal was able to play his game. It was a competitive match, and you can easily say that Nadal, the way he played today, would have beaten a lot of guys in the draw. And looking forward, I'm far more optimistic about Rafa. I want him to be happy, first of all, but I also want him to finish with some good results, because I know that's what Rafa wants. He is such an amazing competitor. He's working so hard to start getting some good wins under his belt. And you can absolutely see the improvement in the last 2 months. So Nadal now, he's possibly going to play Wimbledon. He entered the tournament, and then he's going to play the Olympics at Roland Garros on clay. By that time, I think we're going to see a different Rafa, and far more dangerous than he was today. And the way I'm interpreting Rafa's statements is in the following way. I think there's a high risk that Rafa will re-injure himself, that he will get an acute injury that will take time to heal. If that happens, I think Nadal will call it quits. He cannot spend another year waiting to heal and then come back. The older you get, the tougher it is to heal, and I don't think he wants to go through that painful process. However, if Rafa doesn't re-injure himself in a serious way, I do think that he's going to try to keep going. For some reason, he said goodbye in Madrid, so I don't think he's going to play that tournament, but I can see Rafa next year possibly playing Indian Wells, Monte Carlo, Barcelona, Rome, and possibly the French Open, where he could indeed say goodbye to the sport of tennis. And if everything goes well, if he's able to get this ranking up so that he's at least seated in the tournament, so that he doesn't get such a nightmare opponent in the first round, I think in 2025 Nadal could deliver a good performance at the French Open. I want to say one more thing about today's match, and something that I really never saw on a professional tennis match was the amount of professional players in the stands. Yes, sometimes you see professional players watching matches, but the caliber of the players that was in the stands was unbelievable. So Alizé Cornet and Caroline Garcia were watching. Also Iga Swiatek, Carlos Alcaraz, and most impressively, Novak Djokovic. And Novak deserves so much credit for sitting in the stands and watching Nadal, who is his biggest rival by far. There was a clip that I saw when Nadal saw Djokovic on the practice courts, and these guys embraced and shook hands, and the crowd erupted in applause. It was one of the biggest goosebump moments that I've ever had watching a tennis clip. And I've been saying this privately to my friends, and I'm going to say it publicly now. To all the people that hate Novak Djokovic, I'm telling you, you're going to miss him when he's gone. I know that right now you're thinking you won't, but I'm telling you, you will. There was a video from Louis Vuitton with Federer and Nadal sitting on a mountain somewhere in the Alps, and it was a great video, but one thing that was missing on that mountain was Novak Djokovic. The Mount Rushmore of tennis are Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer, and you could put Sampras on there as well if you want to have four guys. What these guys have done to the game of tennis, the attention they have brought to the game of tennis needs to be appreciated. And for the first time ever today, I saw in the comments of Instagram clips of Nadal's match and YouTube video comment sections of Nadal's last match were Djokovic fans who appreciated Rafael Nadal. And I think the same thing is going to happen when Djokovic finally calls it quits. A lot of the people that hate him, they're going to turn around and appreciate him, what he has done for the game of tennis. As far as my draw sheet is concerned, this is one of the worst predictions that I've ever made. Normally I do a little better on the women's side than on the men's, and I did predict some clutch matches on the women's, but I got a lot wrong as well. But on the men's, for example, I picked Tabilo to go in the quarters. I picked Jerry to go in the fourth round. Both of these guys lost in the first round. I don't understand how. So this year's French Open draw is a crazy one. But once the first round wraps up, I'm gonna make a story on Instagram and tell you how many I got right, how many I got wrong. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, please do at Intuitive Tennis. And if you're not subscribed to the Intuitive Tennis YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.